So can you tell me about the day, how it began, where you were and what you were teaching?
Okay. February 14th was a fun day at school. There's always those days that are like Halloween or Valentine's Day. School goes on as usual, but it's just a fun atmosphere in the school because the kids are walking around with balloons and flowers and candy and all kinds of fun things. And the student government had a fundraiser where they deliver carnations and they had notes on them. So it was one of those festive-y kind of fun days. The school is almost 3,500 students. It's a 45-acre campus, which I think a lot of people don't realize. There are 13 buildings in the school. It's not one large building like you would see up north, or I don't know how it is in California, but it's 13 spread out buildings. The 1200 building, which I was in on the first floor, room 1214, the 1200 building was built, I think, 9 years prior to the shooting, and that had been my classroom. It was more high tech. We had more technology in that building. It was new. So when it was built, I asked if I could come into that building because I wanted all the surround. It had surround sound and all kinds of cool things. I wanted to be part of that. So I moved in there right from the beginning. So that was my classroom from day one. And I did not teach the Holocaust that whole day. And that was my last class of the day as a 90-minute class. We had just recently switched to block schedule that year. So it was a 90-minute class, and you see the students every other day. So the class started as normal, except for all the festivities with Valentine's Day, and there was a young man standing at my desk when I closed the door. We used to stand out in the hallway and greet the kids as they came in. I locked the door that day. I don't always lock the door because you have 30-something kids coming in and out, going to the bathroom, and so, but I did lock the door that day, and a cute kid was at my desk, and he had behind his back, and he came out with a box of candy for me with puppies on it because the kids knew I loved dogs. And so we started the class. Because it's 90 minutes, we did a lot of different activities all in one class, and sometimes. And so we started the class. We just had to finish something that we were working on the last class. The students, interestingly enough, had looked up hate groups that might be on their college campuses. Most of them were seniors, some of them were juniors, and some of them were seniors. And they were working in small groups on what hate groups might be on their college campus and what their logos are, how they try to lure kids in because they're young and impressionable. And a couple of groups went and then they were done. And even though I wasn't on 1936, I decided that day we were going to, when I had made my plans, we were going to do a lesson on the 1936 Olympics in Berlin because the Olympics were going on in Pyeongchang in Korea. And the students were looking on they had I have a laptop cart, and so they had the laptop cart out, and they were going to listen to testimony. They were going to do an activity, and they were listening to testimony of Margaret Lampert. And she was a Jewish German track star who was not allowed to compete in the Olympics. I know she passed away not that long ago at 100 and something too, I don't know. And the kids now have AirPods that don't correspond with my old-fashioned laptops, my outdated laptops. And there were some times where the kids would sit in the hallway, it's an indoor corridor, my building, and listen to the testimonies so that it's not disturbing other people, because they're all at different places. Some people take longer to write their answers on the activity. And thank God, I don't know, for some reason, I said, no, we're going to stay in the class and I'm going to play her testimony. You can answer at your leisure. I'm going to play her testimony so we can all listen to it together so we can have a discussion. And I have, these were also fairly new. I had a Recordex in the front of the room, a giant, one of those sort of news screens, you touch screen. And so we're all going to watch it. I can play it from my computer and it would play on so we were watching her testimony and the kids were all doing their activities and everything. And it was a great lesson, and it was 20 minutes left of the class, maybe 20 minutes left of the class. I said, don't put your laptops away. We're going to start. You can always pick it up the next time. We're going to start. We don't waste any time in my class. So we're going to start the next lesson, and the lesson was we were going to look at the film Race. It was the Jesse Owens story, and it ties everything together. Racism and hatred and prejudice, and then it ties in the Olympics, and it was interesting to the kids. It's an awesome story for a Holocaust class, but I don't like them to just get into it. We want to talk about it first. So on the Recordex, I had put the names of people I want them to look up, and they had to list them and what they have to do with the 1936 Olympics. And it was Jesse Owens and his coach Larry Snyder, and it was Sam Stoller and Marty Glickman, the two Jewish runners from the United States that were not allowed to run in the 400-meter relay. And they were going to look up all of these things, the Avery Brundage, everything. And I asked the students, because they always get a kick out of it, who's Adi Dassler? I had his name up there. And the kids all didn't know. Usually they don't know, or it sounds familiar, but they can't figure it out, or they don't know. And this particular class, I always play with them and find out what they know first. And I said, who's Adi Dassler? And they looked at me, and Nick, who was a very handsome young man in the class, who is an athlete, he's a swimmer, and he had just announced to the class, maybe a week before, I don't know, that he got a scholarship to the University of Indianapolis. He was going to be a Greyhound, and he was going to swim for Indianapolis, and he's Swedish, so he's blonde and adorable, and his goal was to swim at the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. And since I guess because he's an athlete, he said, I know who Adi Dassler is. Adi Dassler is Adidas. And the kids looked at him as he wasn't always so outspoken. He was kind of quiet. And that he just was so excited that he knew the answer. And he was on my list of people to know because when Jesse Owens went over to Berlin, his track shoes never made it. And so his coach, Larry Snyder, went to the shoe factory in Germany, in Berlin, looking for track shoes. And Adi Dassler, who was the shoemaker, should not have made the shoes for Jesse Owens, who was racing against Luz Long, the German track star. But he did. And so the kids were impressed, and they looked at Nick, and then I said, and his brother Rudy, and he said, I know Rudy Dassler is Puma. And that was really impressive. Nobody knows that. And at that very second that Nick Dworet had the last word in class, we heard really loud shots coming out of the hall, outside in the hallway, outside our door. And students looked at me very quickly, and they flew out of their seats. Now, many students, from what I understand in the building too, did not really, we took it seriously, of course, but they thought we knew there was a pending drill going to be coming, and we had never had a Code Red drill. So they thought maybe it was weird because it was very, very real sounding, but they didn't hesitate. And they were juniors and seniors, so they're a little bit mature, I think. And so they flew out of their seats and kind of scattered. There's a lot of students, and it's kind of a small room, lots of desks, 38 desks, furniture, a Recordex, laptop cart, a file cabinet. It was very crowded, extremely crowded in the classroom. No walk-in closet, nowhere to hide. I had said this before in my classes, and they remember me saying, if we have an active shooter, because they had it on our minds that we were going to do some drill. Good luck to us, because there was literally nowhere to hide in that classroom. And so the students scattered to different corners, and I and Kelly, a young lady in the class who actually wanted to transfer out because she thought it was going to be my semester was going to be too hard, which it's not. She called me over. She was sending me over. And she actually, there was a book about Parkland, and she wrote this in an article. She called me over to be with her. She needed someone to hold her, and she said she kept thinking about, her mom, as if I would, be her mom. So I ran into a corner with her, and it was seconds. There was really no time to think or anything. It was within seconds. In the door, in the large, I guess it's a metal door, is a very large glass rectangle that ran down almost the whole length of the door up to the handle. So I thought that too, even before this day, they lock your door, but if you knock the glass out, you just put your hand in, anyone could open the door, whether it was locked or not. So within seconds, an AR-15, although I didn't know if it was one person, several people, I didn't know if I knew the person, I didn't know, came blasting through that glass. All the glass panel broke, and the barrel of the gun was flying around the classroom. All the things on the ceiling, the panels of the ceiling were falling, and it was utter chaos. It was chaos. And it felt like it lasted a long time, but it didn't. And so and the kids were all over, and the kids were trying to grab books from the bookshelf and hide behind. They will move a file cabinet, but there wasn't time, and there was nowhere to really go. And so I remember looking I was crouching with Kelly, and Matt Walker was shaking. He was shaking. He took film because he thought it was a drill, and he was going to show his mother that it was like, what a crazy drill we're having, until he realized it wasn't. And I was looking at the door. I could see the door, and I was waiting for a hand to come in and open that door, because that would have been it. We were all sitting ducks. I mean, and if it was a machine gun, which of course it was, in a second he would have taken all of us out. And I figured, what am I doing? I'm the teacher. I have to do something. And I don't know, in a fit of rage, what somebody, you can't rationalize or reason with someone, but what if? So I thought, these will be my last words, but I'm going to stand up. I made up my mind in that second. And maybe because we talk all the time about doing the right thing in that class, and I said, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to say, we love you. Because this person, whoever it was, probably hates everyone. And maybe he never heard someone say, I love you. I didn't know. I had no idea. But I'm just going to do it. And if I could try somehow to save these kids, I can't fight back, but if I can say, we love you, maybe he'll think we love him, and maybe he wouldn't shoot us. I had no idea. And at that second, I was literally going to stand up. When I saw that hand come in, I heard the shots across the hall. So this person apparently did not, and we know now he didn't kill himself like many of these mass shooters do. He didn't want to die. So maybe, and if he went into a classroom, he might have felt trapped. And so he just shot into 3 classrooms and did not come into the classroom.